welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. This, of course, is our Friday edition. We do some special things on Friday, which I'll get into in a moment. Hope you're already off to a great start today. But before I do anything else, let me just take care of a couple of announcements. First of all, this coming Sunday, I will be at Cornerstone Chapel in Leesburg. Pastor Gary Hamricks, the pastor there, I'll be preaching at 8:30. At 10 a.m. and at 11:30 a.m. So 3 services on Sunday morning. Looking forward to a great time. I'll have some of my books and materials from Stan there with me. And I hope all of you in the area will come on out and be a part of it. Great pastor, great congregation. We're going to have a wonderful time there. The Lord has really laid something on my heart to talk about that I think is vital right now. So I won't preempt myself by telling you exactly what I'm going to be talking about, but believe me, it'll be something that will bless you and encourage you and edify you. So that's one thing I wanted to get out of the way. The second thing is this coming Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Time for the National Awakening Coalition Conference Call. Our guest is going to be Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama. He is going to be with us talking about a host of issues. That's this coming Tuesday. And if you've never joined that call, you know that's a call in which you can ask questions, you can talk to the guest, and so it'll be an opportunity for you to talk to Senator Tommy Tuberville. In case you don't remember who he is, or don't, maybe in case you're not familiar with him, Tommy Tuberville was the one who held up all of those military appointments. And of course, they were angry, very angry with him about this. I agreed 100% with what he was doing because as far as I am concerned, just putting people into positions doesn't make you militarily ready if you're putting the wrong people in those positions. And clearly, Joe Biden is doing that. He has created a military that is more concerned about promoting drag queen story hour and more concerned about promoting homosexuality and giving people operations so that they can change their gender, all of this godless, abominable insanity, than about actually having our military prepared to do what needs to be done to defend us, to defend our national security, to defend our borders, to defend the American people and our way of life. I mean, God bless him for giving them a wake-up call. That is finally over, but I trust that come the first Tuesday in November, we will no longer have Joe Biden presiding over the greatest nation and the greatest government in the history of mankind, that he will be voted out and that Donald Trump will be voted in. I'm going to get into that a little bit today. But since today is Friday and it's Financial Friday, we focus on finances on Friday. I want to just give you all a little bit of background. But before I give you all a little bit about what we're doing and how we need your help. But I want to lead into that this way. Those of you who watch this program regularly probably have noticed, what is this, the 23rd now of February, that I have not said a word about Black History Month. In fact, I think that's the first time the concept has been mentioned. Anybody said, well, why is that? You know, it's all over the television. Even conservative media deal with it. It is not that I don't appreciate Black history. It is this, and by the way, Black history spans, really, if you talk about African history, spans going all the way back to the ancient days. I've studied some of the ancient kingdoms of Africa and some of the things that happened there, which is, you know, why I talk about the fact that slavery has existed everywhere, and some of these ancient African kingdoms were steeped in slavery and the enslavement of African people. So, I mean, this stuff of somehow it's Europe and somehow it's the white man that is the problem. It's just historical ignorance is what it is. And a biblical worldview said, no, it's not the color of one's skin or where one hails from. It's the fallenness of humanity. That's the issue, not skin color, not where you came from. But of course, you don't make any political hay like that, right? You make political hay by saying, it's the white man, and the white man is the problem. He's the repository of all evil. And we've got, I mean, you know, now you've got a villain, and you can be a victim, and, you know, you can rally people because, you know, we victims have got to rally against the villain and all of that, you know. And it's all based on the most superficial of qualities, which is how a person looks in terms of their complexion, as opposed to principle, which unites and divides. We all unite around principle. We know Jesus is not inclusive. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes unto the Father but by me. Oh, and wait a minute, Jesus, you can't do that. Well, he did it. Okay? And it's done. He's the only way. You can't come any other way. And so I don't apologize for that exclusivity, if you will, because it's God's exclusivity. Jesus also said, he that is not with me is against me. He who does not gather with me scatters abroad. Are you for him? Or are you against him? Are you with him? Or are you not? It's very simple, but it's very exclusive. See, for me, the dividing line is not race. And it's not gender. I'm talking about real gender, real, biological, physiological, genetic gender. The dividing line is truth. In fact, Jesus said the same thing. Remember when Pilate asked him, are you a king? And Jesus said, do you say this of yourself, or have others told you this? And Jesus said, you say that I am a king. He said, and for this cause I came into the world, that I might bear witness to the truth. All who are of the truth hear my voice. So you know what he's saying? If you're not of the truth, you're not with me. You're not of me. If you won't hear the truth, you're not with me. If you are all who are of the truth, if you are of the truth, if you love the truth, if you want the truth, you are with me. And you hear my voice. Well, I'm of the truth. I want the truth. I hear Jesus' voice, period. And those who don't, I'd love to persuade to come on in, because they're living in a world of lies without him. That's very exclusive, and it's very right. Now, here's why I don't celebrate Black history. Now, as a practical matter, I'm not trying to say anybody who acknowledges Black history is a bad person or anything like that, because it really does permeate the culture, and it does provide some incentive to tell, it could provide some incentive to tell a fuller picture of our history as Americans. But here's why I don't like it. Because it's segregationist. You know, look, there is American history. And that history includes people who came here from Africa, who came here from Ireland, and who came here from Italy, and who came here from Germany, and who came here from Eastern Europe, and who came here from China, and who came here from all over the world. And if you want to tell those stories, who came here from France, I can't leave France out, came here from Spain, can't leave them out. And you want to tell those stories as part of the American context, wonderful. But you see, what we've done in our country is we've created these silos of victim classes. So you got to have a silo for women, and you got to have a silo for Hispanics, and you got to have a silo for blacks, and you got to have a silo for, East Asian and Pacific Islanders. And you all know that my organization, this is one of the reasons why, another reason why I ran for president, because I would love to elevate this. We created something called Celebrate American History Month in the month of September, which is the month our Constitution was ratified. We chose September as that month. And look, during that month, I would love to tell the stories. I told you a story yesterday, for those of you watching, about George Washington's interaction with Phyllis Wheatley. I've got a book about George Washington and his history of owning slaves. And it talks about slaves that he was close to and talks about his interactions. And it doesn't attempt to whitewash it or suggest that somehow slavery was a good thing. But it simply tells those stories that are not told. And some of those stories are very positive, but you see, because we don't really get taught history in our country anymore, we get taught a polemic against America. Those positive stories, those uplifting stories, like the story I told about his letter to Phyllis Wheatley, and apparently he went on to meet with Phyllis Wheatley, who was a slave, because he admired her poetry and just praised her as an individual. And I believe that George Washington, unlike Thomas Jefferson, who, by the way, Thomas Jefferson had a different reaction, but I think it was in part because one of the poems she wrote was an ode to George Washington, and I think Thomas Jefferson was a little jealous, so he didn't give the poetry any credence and didn't give her any credence. But I think it was in part, not just because, I mean, he was intelligent enough to recognize talent when he saw it. I think it was because, well, why is she writing a poem for George Washington? She should be writing a poem for me. That's just my speculation there, because he was not nice to Phyllis Wheatley at all, whereas George Washington praised her. But here again, life is complex, isn't it? You know, the left would like to tell you that all that people think about, particularly white people, is race. And again, it is obsessive thinking. I call it racial obsession syndrome, ROS. They ought to create a new psychological malady, ROS, racial obsession syndrome, where you see everything that way. Everything is. And that's just not the way people live. That's not the way people think. That's not the way people behave. No people. Because people have many things on their minds. Their financial well-being, their families, their education, their jobs, their health. They're thinking about all kinds of things. But you know, the left would have you think that, particularly if you're an American of European ancestry, that all you think about is racism. Because, and even when you're not thinking about it, you're still being racist. I mean, that's the weird. So I prefer to weave the history of all of us together as one nation rather than creating these silos. And you know, the other thing is, it so trivializes true history. You know, the first thing people want to do during Black History Month is talk about Oprah Winfrey. I mean, give me a break. No. Oprah Winfrey is not an historical figure. Oprah Winfrey is an entertainment figure. That's it. She's not historical in any way. Oprah Winfrey hasn't done. In fact, I would say Oprah Winfrey's done as much damage as she's done good, maybe more, because she's undermined authentic Christianity and convinced people that she's got some great insight, better insight into Jesus than the Bible does. I mean, so I call Oprah Winfrey a glorified witch. And I don't mean that as an ad hominem. I'm not saying that just to kind of be ugly. I really mean that as an actual factual description of who she is, that she is a glorified witch. Excuse me, because she expounds this new age concoction of kind of, I can only call it kind of sorcery and witchcraft and new age nonsense that she's picked up from various places. But in the meantime, she blasphemes Jesus Christ because she has said categorically, Jesus didn't come to die on the cross for anybody's sins. You check it out. That's exactly what Oprah Winfrey. She thinks that you're stupid to believe that. So I'm not a fan. Apparently T.D. Jakes is, but I'm not. I'll leave it at that. So I would prefer to tell the history of black folks when you tell the history of America. Now, unless if you want to go back to pre-America, you want to go back to the history of Africa, that's an entirely different matter. But we're Americans. And I'm talking about the history of what has happened here in our country. And I want that to be a unified whole, not a segmented, segregated, you know. Well, now it's time for Black History Month. Well, what's that got to do with American history? Nothing. We just want, I mean. So, and And I realize that many people try to use Black History Month in well-intentioned ways, so and I don't mean to criticize that at all, okay? I'm not trying to impugn everybody's motives because, again, it does provide some incentive to start talking about some of this history that really the left is not going to teach you, particularly if it's positive. Not that it's all positive, it's not. But particularly if it's positive, they're not going to tell you that history. I had people call me on Truth and Liberty about I read the letter that George Washington wrote to Phyllis Wheatley, and I had people call me and ask me, where can I get a hold of that? They'd never heard that before. Well, of course not. Because here, the greatest figure in American history, in my view, has written a letter to a slave, and all we ever hear about is, he was a slave owner. And it is a letter of admiration and praise and respect for her gifts and her abilities, and an invitation for her to meet him at his camp in Cambridge, Massachusetts. You won't hear that because, of course, people don't want you to know the complexity of American history. They don't want you to know the complexity of human beings. They only want you to know, again, a polemic against the country to make you be bitter and angry and hateful and you know, we got to fundamentally transform the United States of America, as Barack Obama once said. People are against me because I don't look like the presidents that are on the dollar bills. I mean, to me, that's just so infantile. It really is. Here we are living in a complex, dangerous world with lots of issues to deal with, and he thinks that people are only against him, not because they've analyzed his positions on issues and don't agree. No. People aren't smart enough to do that. No, it's only because of the color of his skin that they oppose him. Okay, well, took longer with that than I expected to take. That's kind of par for the course. It is Friday. We have a lot to do. I have a lot to do with the various ministries God has placed under my care. And I want to especially ask you for your help and your support. First and foremost, your prayers. So let me just tell you where I am right now. You've heard me say before that I'm believing God for our first $1 million donor. The largest donor we've had at one time is a donor who gave $120,000. That's the largest donor we've ever had. But I'm believing God for $1 million donor, the first $1 million donor. And I'll tell you why. Because we as an organization will be 15 years old when this next awards dinner will celebrate 15 years of the existence of STAND. And we are still operating really on a quarter-to-quarter basis. That I am busy raising money now to try to keep us going for the following quarter, and it is a constant slog. I don't have the ability to try to do what needs to be done for the next year because I don't have enough funds in reserve that I can focus on next year. And $1 million donor would allow us to do that so that I could put some things in place that we don't now have. And let me tell you what those things are, just so you know. And then I want to talk about the programs. But you know, they often say, well, people don't want to give to administrative stuff. But look, let me tell you something. If you don't create the infrastructure, you don't create a stable organization. It's just that plain and simple. You've got to have the infrastructure. And I'm not talking about money to buy a new car or money to buy some, and I'm not talking about money to buy an airplane. I'm talking about money to help create a stable, self-sustaining structure. So let me tell you what I mean. So for example, I really need an executive director. I need somebody who handles the day-to-day operations because really, my primary gift is speaking and teaching and preaching and writing, and I don't really have time to do that very much. I mean, I've got another book. We got another book coming out here shortly that I'm co-authoring, but I've got another book in mind. But I mean, just like this book, finding the time to write is really, really tough. But that's really what I ought to be doing. I ought to be speaking and writing primarily. I need an executive director to run the day-to-day operation. Well, I've got to pay that person a salary, obviously. I need a development officer, somebody who's responsible for doing what I'm now doing. I'm both executive director and development officer. That person's responsibility would be to make sure that we have direct mail going, in other words, snail mail going out all over the country, that's in place, that we have what's called a house file of people, 5, 10, 15, 20,000 people who give regularly. That creates a stable income for an organization. And that person is reaching out to big donors, explaining what we do, and putting me in touch with those donors when those donors seem ready to talk to the leader and the founder, so that I can potentially close that deal, close on their making a major contribution to the organization. And we're doing that not to try to survive the next quarter or the next 6 months, but we're doing that planning for years to come. And that's what a development officer would do. They put together a complete fundraising plan. It would include emails. It would include direct mail. It would include major donors. Our Patriot Partner Program, that's part of our fundraising strategy, so that we are grassroots organizations, so that we get people from all over the country giving that $5, $10, $15, $20 a month to help, because that creates, I mean, folks, that's a tremendous, tremendous help. You'd be amazed at what that is. And we want to get that up. We're still up somewhere around, I think, 225. We had a fall off during COVID, and we haven't really made up the ground. But I want to get to 500. That's the number I really want to get to right now. I want to get to 500 people who are Patriot Partners. So we want to put all of that in place. I mean, ultimately, I need to have a program director for America's Forgotten Children. We've got the Family Restoration Institute that I've begun to work on, developing a curriculum for it. I need a program director for that. We're developing this program called REACH, the Revolt to End Anti-Christian Hatred. I really need somebody to run that, a program director to run that. But first we got to put in place the apparatus that allows us to raise the money and go out and make the case systematically and raise the money for the things that we are doing. We've got Stand With Law Enforcement program that's really been all but dormant. I'm a big supporter of law enforcement. I think it's an important part of creating public safety, particularly in the inner cities, but all over the country. And the police have been vilified and villainized and slandered and called everything but children of God. And we are big supporters of law enforcement. But, you know, the things that we'd like to do, you only have so much bandwidth as one person. So there are all kinds of things we want to do that you really can't do to the fullest extent you'd like unless you've got the resources to do them. Okay? And yes, that involves some major donors. I believe in God for that $1 million donor, but I'm also believing God for those. I tell you, I think I've said this to you. Our smallest donor is $5 a month, a Patriot Partner donor. Our largest donor is $2,000 a month. So, and we've got everything in between. We got $25, $50, $100, $250, $500, everything between $5 a month and $2,000 a month. Obviously, you know, not everybody can afford to give a large donation like that, but there are people who believe in us enough to give $500, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 a month to the organization. We need a lot more of them, folks, a lot more of them. So I wanted to ask you all to pray about your commitment to the organization and what you can do to help us. And as a Patriot Partner, or maybe you know a foundation, maybe you know a wealthy benefactor who you know is on the same page with us, and that's the person that I really ought to be introduced to, that you really want to put me in touch with that person, because I need, you know, in investments, there's a name we can begin to really plan for the future. We're 15 years old. I want to get beyond the quarter-to-quarter slog and get to the point where we can start planning for years to come, and also start planning for transition, folks. I mean, let's face it, I can't do this forever. I'm not going to be around forever. Forgive me. Let me correct that. I'm not going to be in this phase of life forever. I am going to be around forever. Thank you, Jesus. But I will not be in this phase of life forever. I mean, obviously, in this phase of life, I'm growing old. You know, I've got to prepare for new blood to come in and see to it that this organization becomes everything God intended for it to become until Jesus comes, because that's my plan for it to go on until Jesus comes. I don't want to leave this earth and have everything I've done fold up because there's nobody to step up and take it over, okay? And that requires resources, because you can't expect somebody to step in and take over something that has nothing to offer. So it requires resources to be able to both the plan for how that transition is going to happen, and maybe the plan for who is going who are going to be the people and the persons or the person to lead it, to see to it that it goes forward, and also to see to it that it goes forward based on the spirit of its founder. I'm always dismayed when I see an organization taken completely off the track because somebody takes over who didn't have the vision, doesn't have the spirit of the founder, and before you know it, the organization is it's unlike anything that the founder would have created. And I've seen that happen a couple times. I won't get into details because the very thought of it makes me angry. It really does, because I just think it's a complete betrayal of a founder's vision for somebody else to kind of take over and just take the thing in a different direction. It's just that, to me, I find that frankly downright demonic. That's what happened at Harvard, by the way. But I'm just speaking of nonprofit conservative organizations that were taken in a different direction because somebody else kicked out the founder or got rid of the founder. When the founder finally was ready to move on, somebody stepped in and said, well, we got a better idea. We're going to do this. And you know what? The organizations are never the same. They're never as vital and as effective as they were when the person with the original vision. That doesn't mean that person can stay there forever. We know that. But that vision ought to remain intact until Jesus comes. And so part of transition is planning to make sure that that's going to happen, that somebody can't come in and just take things in a different direction. Now, don't get me wrong, folks. I'm not planning to go anywhere. Lord willing, I'm going to be here a good long while yet. But I tell you one thing, I'm not going to be here another 72 years. Okay? So we know that. But at any rate, so I'm asking you to pray for us first and foremost. If you are watching right now and you're not a Patriot Partner, and you can give anywhere from $5 to whatever you can give on a monthly basis, I'm asking you to do that for us. As you all know, I'm going to give a free book to anybody who signs up as a Patriot Partner for $25 a month or more. I'm going to take care of that for you just as a token of our appreciation to you. And let me come back and talk about these organizations that these projects, I should say, that we are creating as an organization. America's Forgotten Children, the website is right there, americasforgottenchildren.com. This program, folks, it is just vital because it goes to several things. It goes to public safety, which the whole Black Lives Matter, defund the police, dismantle the police thing completely undermined. And we're still suffering from it because we got most police departments with a shortfall of personnel, and they can't do the job that they are charged with doing to try to keep their cities safe. We've got most police departments today demoralized because they've been told, well, you're racist, you're bad, you're no good, you can't be trusted, you're dangerous, you're crazy, you name it. And so the police really have been vilified. So it goes to that issue. But it also goes to the issue of safety, the issue of family, I meant to say, the issue of family. Because, look, most of the kids committing these heinous crimes are young boys who are raised in single-parent, female-headed households. And often the mothers have them when they're 14, 15, 16 years old. So when the kid gets to be 11, 12, 13, the kid is dealing with a mother often in her late 20s. She's still immature herself. And depending upon her background, she may be highly dysfunctional. Believe me, I've seen enough of that. So who's raising the kid, particularly a young boy? The streets. The gangs in his neighborhood. They're raising him. They're teaching him what manhood is. It's dog eat dog. It's kill or be killed. Demonstrate your manhood by going out and killing some innocent person and showing heartlessness about it. And they're terrorizing these communities. And we're not going to fully deal with this problem without addressing the fact that we've got to put families back together again. And folks, here again, when I say that, how many politicians have you heard talk about this? When I was running for office, I talked about it. When I was running for president, I talked about it. But you know why? Because it's hard. And it's just easier to ignore it than to bite off something that you know you can't solve overnight. And you can't solve this year, next year, maybe not in the next 5 years, maybe not in the next 10 years. But you know, the Bible says where there is no vision, the people perish. There's got to be a vision of a better life, a better world. And part of what we are doing is saying, look, two things. The curriculum for the Family Restoration Institute will apply to adults who already have children. It will apply to adults who want to have children, want to get married and have children. But it will also apply to young people, to adolescents, to help instill in them a vision of what family is. To help them understand, no, a family is not, because nowadays people are talking about this polyamory stuff. That's what the left is now pushing. That's the big thing coming down the way, which is, a family can be 2 men, 5 women, 3 drag queens, 7 non-binaries, all having sex and all just whatever. I mean, yeah, folks, it's just an abomination. It's just chaos and anarchy, and it's rank rebellion against God. But that's the next thing coming down the pike. Young people need to be taught, no, the ideal family is husband, wife, mother, father, in the sacred covenant bonds of holy matrimony, with the intention of having children that they bring up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, being taught godly morality, godly wisdom, godly understanding of who they are and their role in life, that they are not glorified animals, that they are made in the image and likeness of God, and that God has a plan and a purpose for them, has endowed them with gifts and abilities, and part of their job is to fulfill their God-given potential while they are on this earth. That they're to love God and know God's love in their own lives, for a wife to love her husband, for a husband to love his wife, for the parents to love their children, and do everything in their power to try to help them create the very best life they can for themselves by teaching them right from wrong, teaching them good from evil, teaching the value of life, for example. How in the world can you teach kids the value of life when you're busy killing unborn babies by the millions? But teaching them that life here now apparently is coming along. I don't know where they're going to stand on all this crazy stuff, but challenging these big $100 billion companies that assume some of them will be $1 trillion companies. Some of them have already crossed the $1 trillion value mark, to say, look, let's go into these cities, put some private sector resources in these cities to create job training programs so that you don't have to go to college to have a marketable skill. And that skill can be as sophisticated as something like computer programming or software or hardware repair and systems engineers. But it can be things like welding, like carpentry, electrician, you name it. Teaching people marketable skills, but at the same time teaching them spiritual and cultural principles that will allow them to live the fullest lives possible for them. And say, the government can't do that, because you mentioned God, and the government runs away like its hair's on fire, well, I guess they're so full of devil. I guess the mere mention of God does frighten them. In many cases, they're so full of the devil. But it's got to be a private sector effort. I've got something, if you go to the website, standamerica.us, it's here again, this has been dormant, but something called the Awakening Project. And it is a comprehensive private sector plan for rejuvenating the inner cities. No government funding, no government involvement. Okay? I've got an acronym called CREATE. Let me see if I can remember. CREATE. CR for create, EA for economic, CR for cultural renewal, actually. CR for cultural renewal, EA for economic or entrepreneurial awakening, actually. Entrepreneurial awakening. And the TE for technical education. CREATE. Folks, there is no lack of ideas. We just need the resources to carry them out. And we're believing God and believing you to believe God with us, to play your part and to pray and come in agreement with us. And then here's the last thing I'll mention, which is REACH. REACH, the revolt to end anti-Christian hatred. You realize, folks, that the attacks on the family are part of anti-Christian bigotry. All this stuff that's been said about the monogamous two-parent family is all anti-Christian bigotry. It's all Marxist hatred for the family as God created it, because it's an institution of oppression. It oppresses women. And we got to remember, when Black Lives Matter put out their first website, the thing was just absolutely filled with these ideas. You got to do away with the Western nuclear family. I mean, these people don't have a clue what they're talking about. Just as dumb as rocks, as my daddy used to say, just as dumb as Jesse James was bad. I mean, but that was their mantra. Now, when people saw that, they immediately cleaned up their website and got rid of all of that because they realized how stupid they looked. In a community that is being decimated by broken families, they think you got to get rid of the family. That's going to make life so much better. A bunch of sick, disgusting Marxists. And they're supposed to be the answer to the racial problems in America? Give me a break. We got to come back to the biblical foundations and definitions for who we are and what makes a good life. And folks, God didn't give us anything on an earthly basis, anything better than the family to allow us to experience fulfillment. And the devil is the one who wants to rip that apart, wants to rip that up. The devil is the one who introduces lies and betrayal and heartbreak and division and all of that stuff. That is a work of Satan. And the people cooperating with that are working for Satan, whether they know it or not. And that includes Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, the organization, is satanic. It is demonic. Well, obviously the mainstream media is not, they don't want to hear that. You know, YouTube, Facebook, they don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating. You see what's happened as a result. Go to the America's Forgotten Children and you see it writ large. 600 children, I think the number is now, maybe more than that, who have been murdered in the streets of our cities since the George Floyd tragedy, when this was all supposed to be about making life better, right? Let's get rid of the police. Let's reimagine police. Yeah. How's that working out for you? Getting innocent black children killed. And of course, crime is now spread. It's not racial anyway, but you know, that demographic is the first and hardest hit, but it's spreading everywhere. I mean, we've got FBI agents and former officials in the Trump administration killed in Washington, well, accosted in Washington, D.C. with guns pulled on them, while these young kids that I'm talking about, 15, 16, 17 years old, are willing to kill people and take their car. So it's gotten well beyond people who just live in the poor neighborhoods of the inner city. It's affecting everybody. So I want to ask for your help. Again, first, your prayers. Secondly, if you are not a Patriot Partner, I would encourage you to become one today. If for whatever reason that doesn't appeal to you, just give the most generous gift you can and help us. And I want you all to come in agreement with me praying for that first $1 million donor, because I've just given you a little bit of insight of how our organization operates. That basically we're, I am the chief fundraiser, and I am fundraising all the time. Have to. But I want to get away from that, where I'm fundraising just to meet the immediate needs of the organization, and I'm really doing long-term planning for the organization. I won't say the name of the person because I don't know that they would want me to do that, but if I did, you would recognize the name. Most of you would anyway. But the person is a friendly acquaintance of mine. I wouldn't call him a dear friend, but a friendly acquaintance of mine, who told me, and they run one of the premier conservative organizations in the country, who told me, we were just kind of going along, and just basically kind of like what I'm doing now, just basically month to month, quarter to quarter, trying to pay my staff, trying to get everything, working operably, working effectively, and trying to stay ahead of the bill collectors. He said, and then one of our donors, who had really never given a really large sum of money to the organization, passed away, included us in his will, and left us $26 million. He said, and that was it. He said, that was all she wrote. And he said, we never looked back. We went to a whole new level and have just gone on from there, continued to grow and thrive and prosper from there, because now we had a foundation to build on, so we could plan not just for the next quarter and not even just for the next year. We could plan for the next 5 years, and we could put the apparatus together that would create a self-sustaining organization. Well, we believe in God for estate planning givers as well. People who remember us in their will and leave us a significant sum of money in their will. Again, looking ahead to utilizing, because our organizations, our church, STAND, are certainly they're in our wills. My wife and I, we're not devoting our lives to something, and then when we pass away, we go on to heaven, then ignore what God has given us and not leave some of that to be a blessing to the efforts that God has had us invest our lives in while here on this earth. That doesn't make sense to me. Well, we're hoping that there will be people who've donated to us over the years who will say, you know what, I want to include the work of STAND in my estate plan. I want to include the work of STAND in my will. Because I want the money to go to help STAND become a strong, stable organization that is self-sustaining. As long as I'm here, the organization is going to continue to grow because I'm going to continue to move it forward. But I don't want it to be self-sustaining based upon my energy and drive and determination alone. I want it to be self-sustaining based on the fact that we put an infrastructure in place that allows it to be self-sustaining. Okay, whether I'm here or not. So, shared all of that with you on this Finance Friday to let you know exactly what we're trying to achieve. And I got all these new projects that we're working on that we want to get squared away. And I hope that all of you will be praying for us. And I realize probably it would be in the nature of the case that most of you watching, probably all of you watching, are not in a position to write me $1 million check. But if there is somebody watching right now is in that position and God has touched your heart, believe me, I would appreciate it. I told you folks, I've had two dreams of being given $1 million check. 2 dreams. And I really believe God is saying to me, I've got it for you, son. It's coming. Just believe me and hold on for it. 15 years, folks, 15 years, and this is the way I run the organization, just basically hustling all the time. And I want to keep hustling, but again, I want to be doing that for the long-term needs of the organization, not just quarter to quarter or even worse, month to month. or even 6 months to 6 months, but looking out ahead for years in terms of what we want to accomplish, what we want to achieve. Now, you may not be aware of this, but we partner with Prager University to do a documentary for America's Forgotten Children that's scheduled to come out in the spring, probably in April. That's going to be a big deal. Partnering with Prager University is a big deal. They're a much, much bigger organization than we are. I went out to Chicago and did a bunch of filming with them on this. They've interviewed some of the parents of these children. So it's going to be a wonderful film. It's a short documentary, but it's going to be a wonderful film. So God is blessing. And, maybe that film will be seen by somebody who will say, wow, I want to support an organization that is doing that kind of work and calling attention to something that nobody else is calling attention to. Nobody. So be praying for us, okay? Because I really believe that kind of thing happens as a result of your prayers. Because, again, we're not paying for it. It's just God just worked it out that they found out about it, got interested in it, and now, they're doing a film about it. And they are one of the premier organizations, if not the premier organization, for doing conservative media and getting the word out effectively to as many people as possible. So God bless each and every one of you. I understand they've got about 15 million hits on their website a month. Might even be bigger than that now. So we are grateful to God to be partnering with them in a project like this, and we think it's going to really help us a great deal. Put it on your calendar. We don't have the exact date yet, but we're going to get it. It's in May or June for the Stand Awards dinner. Please plan to come and be a part of that. We got big plans for that Stand Awards dinner. It's going to be the best we've ever had. So you be praying for us on that as well. And folks, that's it. That's where we are right now. Thank you all for your support. Again, I'll be at Cornerstone Chapel this coming Sunday. If you're anywhere in the Leesburg area, anywhere in the Northern Virginia area, come on by. I'd love to meet with you. I'll be signing books between all three services or after all three services. So I have plenty of opportunities to meet with people and maybe have very brief chats with people in the course of that process. So God bless each and every one of you. I am extremely hopeful. I am completely committed. There is no quit in me, folks. There's none in me. We're going on in the name of the Lord. And we've got victory because Jesus Christ has already bought and paid for the victory for us. So you stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up. Because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. Because we are on God's side. Have a great weekend, everybody.